Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's panel discussion. First, I need to give you a little bit of context why we are here, and I'll start a little bit with my story. In Kiwi.com for the last 9 months, we've been working very hard to improve our ways of working. I've been directly involved in that effort, and there were many discussions about how to make the improvement. Agile methodologies naturally come into the picture, and our why at the time was to improve predictability and increase transparency. Once you start learning and diving deeper, you inevitably hit the topic of productivity, the efficiency of production, the turning inputs into outputs. And over time, I found out that there are 100 ways of start thinking about productivity and talking about optional length of sprints and many other things. And there are 3 things I actually learned from that experience so far. First is that it's easy to fall into rabbit holes of holy discussions. Second, that it's not always about the length of sprints. There are different variables coming to the picture, and it's not always easy to actually identify them. And the third is that the grass is not greener anywhere else, and every company is solving the similar problems. So I took the last points and focus on that. With Kiwi.com community team, we managed to bring together 4 people from the industry and ask them about their view of the topics of Agile and productivity. And because I believe that every single company is solving the similar problems, we invited all of you, the audience, to join us and listen and ask questions. So who are our panelists for today? I have here on the Zoom Sobotka, Director of Product Engineering at Socialbakers, who looked at Agile and never looked back. I have Karel Smutný, professional Scrum trainer at Scrum.CZ and organizer of Prague Scrum Beer. I have Janak, who glued broken teams and currently working as Agile code at Česká Spořitelna. And Kamil Kubeš, first month at his first position at the lead of Agile PMO at Avast, previously helping teams at Home Credit. And my name is Jakub Wolf, and I'm working in Kiwi.com as an engineering manager, and for the past 9 months leading agility transformation there. I will be your host today, and I will do my best to keep the discussion civilized. I'll be doing it for the first time, so let's see how it goes. How are we going to look like today? We're going to start with a short presentation from each of our panelists, where they also introduce themselves by themselves. And then we jump directly to the panel discussion and later questions from the audience.
Okay, thank you for the word. Let me share the screen, and yeah, let me thank you all for making it this late in the evening. It had to be like super important topic for you if you make time this. I will struggle myself to attend the meeting at 7 p.m. So huge thank you for attending. I will start with the question I'm getting very often from various friends and even the people in the company. How do I make my people more productive? And here what you see is the factory workers, because this is where this idea comes from usually. And yeah, I'll let it sink a little bit. Well, how do you make the people more productive? You don't make them unproductive. And this is usually the answer I gave. And it sounds like I'm total asshole, but I do that for a reason, because the usual situation, or usually the people asking the question themselves, are responsible for creating the environment that is demotivating the people and making them less productive. So it's very good idea if you are in the position of asking yourself the question, ask about the environment you are creating in the company, because it may be the reason why you have to ask the question itself. And yeah, I will let that think again. Yeah, that's what I was speaking about. So the whole perception that people are by default unproductive and you need metrics and managers to make them productive is completely wrong in any creative area. Actually, it's for creative workers that the developers and the engineers are, it's very, very wrong assumption. And yes, as a managers, we will have a way easier job if we manage the cotton workers, but that's not the case, right? We work with the intelligent people that need some context. They need discussion and understanding the goal we have like together. And the illustration of this is that basically any mistake we do in the overestimation or underestimation of the technological side have a like 100 times smaller impact than misunderstanding of the problem we are solving for the customer. So yeah, no occasional whip helps. And yeah, how is the agile relevant to the productivity? Is the question that was raised on the call we had in the preparation, and I believe it isn't. The agile methodologies, despite some religious belief of illiterate managers, does not make people work faster. The reason why we moved from the project management to the agile methodologies was that we were delivering a wrong solution and we were delivering the wrong solution late. And for me, this is still a major part of the recipe. If you are building the right things in the right scope, you don't consider like this beautifully presented initiatives to improve the productivity. I have a good example. You are looking at the ice hockey players, and that's for a reason. This is example from our company. I was leading the team, and I was called an NHL master because we had a PS4 in the office, and we were playing NHL on the console every day, almost every day around the lunchtime. And we talked a lot, and we had a lot of fun. We were like most relaxed team in the company. And one important thing is that we always delivered. And this is kind of hard to understand for some people, and some people will go around the company and they will spread the rumors of like how we are cheating the things or how we are doing it. And that's basically, and it may even make your team look bad in the rest of the company. But that's because they don't understand how motivation and engagement works. Like if you want people to be engaged in the work, they need communication way more than writing the number, any artificial number of lines of the code. So if you want to keep the productivity, you need motivate people to understand the context, to understand what they are doing in the job, and to help you solve the problem of the customer. That's my 10 cents. Over to you, Jakub.
Thanks, Adam. And thanks for your point of view. This will anchor you at some point. And we're going to move to Karel, who is the next on the line.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me for this. And thanks for every attendee to coming. It's a pleasure to be part of this panel. I know all the guys personally, but since we don't meet very often, I'm very happy that we can be here on this occasion. So besides being a Scrum trainer and Scrum beer organizer, the things that in the quarantine don't really thrive, I also an organizational designer. I used to call myself Agile coach, but I no longer know what it means. But what I do in the past 10 years is helping companies with adopting Scrum, and in the past, I don't know, 5-6 years on the larger scale. And I want today to bring up a topic which is for an unknown reason brought up on conferences and meetups and open spaces very rarely. And it's not because it's an obscure topic which nobody is solving, maybe it is, but when there were live events like conferences and meetups and such before all this quarantine craziness, I was observing a pattern while people in the hallways conversations or in the breakout rooms were sharing their troubles. Many companies, while adopting Scrum on the larger scale, seems to have a very different symptoms. However, after some conversations and good question, I started to find out that many of the root causes are very, very similar across many organizations. And many organizations who are new to Scrum and the Agile way of working are struggling with the same. So what I want to bring up today, I will be sharing my screen very shortly. I am not a slide person, so you will be subject to my very crappy drawing today. Since the topic of today's meetup is productivity, let me cheat a bit and bring my own definition of a productivity. So typically productivity is being understood of some output per unit of time or per dollar or something like this. Yeah. And the output means how much stuff you produce. And in the old ages, from the picture that Adam had as his first slide, when people were doing things that nowadays are done by robots, probably the amount of output was important. When I saw the picture, actually, what came to my mind was the Frederick Taylor, who was very known of being into this topic 100 years ago. He is considered to be the first management consultant. What is not very well known, or at least I found out in a very dusty books, are his practices that are being reported from his time, that when he was consulting his clients, he measured the productivity with the strongest guys around, measured their output in 1 hour, and then he extrapolated this for a 12-hour shift and made it a standard for everyone, and then charged the commission based on the calculated savings, which never happened apparently. However, in today's world, the output is typically done by robots, and the productivity is a discipline for some other people than us. So I will cheat a bit and will put an outcome per dollar. And by outcome, I would mean something that is actually helpful and useful. It is something that in the product development is more important than the amount of output, because in the product development, you are coming with new features in software. It is very, very tangible for the customers to make their life easier. So I will start there. And what are the typical factors for this productivity, for the amount of outcome per unit of time or manpower or something? Differs very widely across small world and a big world. In small world, it's a couple dozen people, 10, 15, maybe 20. So if you have a team of such a size, which is end-to-end responsible for delivering the product end-to-end, which nowadays is not very, very many teams, then there are certain factors that play a role. Now, maybe if I can ask the attendees to put into the chat to everyone, what things do you think typically influences the productivity in a small team? So please start shooting some words, not to the Slido, but to the chat on the Zoom. There should be a button with the bubble somewhere. So feel free. Before some things will start doing lunch, yes. So the typical factors are the tools being used and the practices being used, and psychological health and IQ and education and the environment, both technical and psychological.
We also have engineering culture saying by Mark Harak and motivation.
Very, very good. Thank you very much. Yeah, motivation is a thing that comes out of it. With the culture, I will come to the culture very soon. So these are the things that we typically contribute to the productivity. However, it is the case only on the small scale. Once you get to the bigger scale, and big is not really very big. Once we go over 50, these things on the left side stop playing any role. And in the big world, what plays a role is a structure. What I mean by structure is hierarchies, teams, their responsibilities, communication path, feedback loops, responsibilities and such. And on the big world, this the organizational structure and the resulting behavior of people plays significantly larger role than any of the left side in the small world, like by a factor of 100. So all these things start to be literally without any meaningful impact. And now it sounds like a very strong claim, and we have only a few minutes on this, so the other speakers can have their own contributions. So I will give an example what kind of a structure might influence your overall outcome, not on a team level, but on a company level. And I consulted some years ago a company who were going through this McKinsey style transformation with the tribes and squads. I will not name it. There was a bunch on Czech market, but I don't want to point to any. And I was interviewing the individual squads. They were presenting a lot of the different symptoms and dysfunctions. And what is typical for this kind of a setup is that each individual squad has their own individual product owner and their own individual product backlog. It seems to be like in Scrum, every team has it. But the thing is that it's not true. A product has a product owner and a product backlog, regardless how many teams are working on it. So what this led to, there were 2 tribes, 5 teams each. So it was 10 teams in total. And I invited the product owners and the tribe leads and Scrum Masters and some other people, the head of a digital transformation, head of an agile transformation, a couple others, for a short morning exercise. And I kindly asked them, let's have a look what you are working on, because a lot of you seem to be overburdened. You seem to have a lot of dependencies across each other. You seem to be feeding work not only from your product owners, but from the company-wide projects and so on. So please, if you can list all the important initiatives and projects that you are currently working on. And I'm not interested in the individual backlog items at the top of the backlog. This would be a lot of them, and probably many people wouldn't understand. So they take some bigger like projects or initiatives, and they listed 16 of them. And they had a pretty good agreement among this group, which of these they are. And then I asked them kindly, and now please, if you can order them from the most important to the least important, just to see where your focus is being in regards to the importance of the project, not for your individual teams, but for the company as a whole, which was much more than these 10 squads. It was a much bigger one. And after some 20 minutes of very lively conversation, I don't want to say bickering, they were able to sort out all these projects on a single sheet of a flip chart. It was something like this. And then I agreed, yes, from the perspective of the company, this would be the order of importance. And then I said, interesting. So I see that at the very bottom of the flip chart, there is an initiatives. One of these 10 squad is fully dedicated to. So you are working fully, full-time, the whole squad, on a 16th most important project, while you are barely taking any breath on these 3, which seems to me to be significantly more important. Wouldn't it be nice if those people would be able to help it? But they don't know any better. They don't have the skills. So you are paying people that do not have any useful skills for you. You utilize them on something that is actually not very important. And then I ask, so by any chance, I don't believe it will be the case, but just to make sure, is there any squad who is working on something not even on this list? And guess what? There was a squad, the other of the 10 that didn't even contribute to any of these and was working on something even less important. We don't know if it was 17th or 100 less important. And for the product owner of this squad, it was a devastating information to find out that no matter what their tribe lead told them how he's saving the world, in the big picture, he wasn't contributing to anything at all, actually, meaningful. So I was told this story many times in a hypothetical way, but this one is a real one. It really happened. And if you have a backlog per team, it is not unusual. It is not something that is an extreme case. And with having 10 backlogs per 10 teams, unless you do this kind of an exercise, which typically you don't, you actually don't know that you are wasting resources of a low level items. And then if the team at the very bottom, the 16 most important things team, would have the best practices and tools and psychological health and education and environment, technical and psychological and motivation, they would still contribute to the outcome in a very little way. And this is just one of the example of the structure that plays the role in the overall picture. And if we have 3 more days, I would give other things that as a structure plays role in the overall outcome. So that would be it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Karel. That was very insightful. I mean, I have already a few questions. I'm going to ask them after all panelists actually have their points, but looking forward to it. All right, next one. I believe it's Kubo, Janak. I'll give you the word. Go ahead.
All right. So, first of all, who am I? I'm a startup guy, but strangely enough, I'm now sailing the seas of Česká Spořitelna, and it's fine. All right. Now to the topic. What is effectivity? Unfortunately, not many people actually filled in any input to my word cloud, but you can see many things on the chart. Anyway, one of them is actually motivation, and that's going to be my focus because I deeply believe that you need motivated people to be any productful or to have any productivity. All right, let's hit it. So this is not going to be pretty. I did most of the animations myself. Sorry for that. First name that we should definitely point out is Daniel H. Pink, who pretty much dedicated 10 years of his life to study the motivation of people. And what he found out is that there are different kinds of motivation. And now the first question for you guys. What do you think this is? And please write into the chat. I'm watching it. Come on. Or guys, you can say it if you... Pyramid. Oh, yeah. That is. Trying. It is a pyramid, all right? Priority pyramid. Oh, right. I'll give you a hint. How about now? Do you know what it? Yeah. All right, you got it. So this is the basic needs, and you just need them. You cannot help it. It's think about caveman. Basically, you eat something. Well, the biggest caveman actually has something to eat. The smaller caveman don't have that much to eat, and pretty much he's gonna have all the women and you none. But for the time, it's awesome. We're great. It's like a primary, very elementary motivation. Straightforward. The limit to that, once again, let's keep you engaged. What's the limit to this kind of motivation? Hit me. Not seeing anything. Yeah, because perhaps you don't know.
This is a tough one, Kuba.
All right. Hey, there was something. I saw it. It stopped working when everything is satisfied. Not necessarily. So I mean, are you comfortable with the idea that the biggest guy with the biggest stick actually gets all the stuff and you're not? That somebody would just take a meal from your plate and made it his because he needs it. No. So it's the complexity of the society. This kind of motivation is only sufficient in a very simple society. Daniel actually called this the 1.0. That's because he wrote the book Drive in the 90s, and everything smelling with IT was supposed to be super cool. All right, after 1.0, guess what? There is going to be 2.0. And about that, yeah, I should have asked the question, but obviously, this is all the carrots and sticks and sugars and whips. So think the shoe factory, but you can also think about the factory, textile factory, I believe that Adam had on his first slide. So the show up in work kind of job. You show up in work, you pull the lever in 5-second interval, shoes got made, everybody's happy. And you leave the factory with a clean hat. Now, the wonderful thing about this word of motivation 2.0 is that if you add the money, you actually get the higher performance, you know, for a shoe worker or a guy, and not a shoe worker, not a real artist shoe worker, but, you know, a guy in a shoe factory, perhaps if you pay him 30% more, it's no hassle for him to stay 20% more time, and he'll be happy and he'll be thinking about all the nice stuff he buys for this money. So it's awesome. Now, again, it's got some limit. The limit to this is that it's the simplicity of work. It can be serializable kind of work, like factory lines, but still the result of the work is basically the results of individuals combined. You know, very simple. And basically, this is not motivation, it's compensation. You know, you pay people to do something they rather not do in their time. There is obviously too much space up there, right? So this is what? I'm not going to ask the audience this time. So this is art, you know, I'm telling you. And this is a good picture, you know, very good picture. If I paid you some money to, you know, 1 times the money, let's say, 1 times any money, to make a good picture, then perhaps if I pay you twice as much money, you'll give me twice as good picture. Think about the phrasing, good picture. So like this time, I want to feel music out of the picture. Is it gonna happen? No, it's not, because you cannot bribe somebody to be more creative. It's just not possible. It has to happen inside of him. Like, he has to be happy doing the job. So the obvious conclusion, why is this happening, is, you know, my money is broken. It doesn't work as it should. It has to be, right? Because that's what we were taught. Or it's some kind of magic, maybe even witchcraft. Now, what he's pointing to is the intrinsic motivation. How does this inner thing work? Well, I've got 3 elements to it. The first one, you guessed it, yeah, it's the coffee. Actually, maybe not. It's the autonomy. Autonomy is defined as the need to be self-directed, or you can also call it freedom in reasonable boundaries. Now, second component is purpose. So, you know, you should believe that what you're doing actually makes some impact on the world. It doesn't have to be saving the world. You just have to value the work you're doing, or know that it has some impact, which is important to you. Third one, yeah, that's mastery. So when you look at yourself a week after, and you're just like, 1 week ago, I didn't know this, and I could actually talk it or teach it to another person, and I'm feeling confident. And when you have these 3, it's even more powerful when it rotates, you get flow. And that's what you want. In flow, you're 100% motivated, you're using all your brain capacity, time kind of stops for you, just working, focus on the job, growing. And so this is the summary. I'm not saying that money is always a bad motivator. Like, if you're doing that kind of job slightly on the right, and it can be parts of a job which otherwise is totally fun, but the parts that are completely boring, they are killing your brain, then it's awesome idea to actually bribe your brain with money and you know, compensate. When you're doing something that you want people to actually plug in their brain in, you have to amplify or get out of the way of intrinsic motivation of your people, which brings us to the Eureka moment, which was already mentioned at least by Adam, I think, and that's that software development is actually creative work. not pure technical or mechanical, as plenty of people still see it, but it's creative. There is 1,000 ways to make a right clicky button, right? All right. The connection to Agile. Well, you got these strange things which are called the Scrum values. They're flying around somehow. Then let's be a little more concrete. Let's say that there is this thing called self-organization, there is a thing called T-shaping, and there are some user stories somewhere. If I put the picture that we painted before using my coffee mug, you'll see the connections a little more clear. So autonomy has a direct link to self-organization. Purpose, user stories are little packages of purpose for the customer, if done right. And the T-shaping, well, that's a continuous stimulator of your mastery, because the work usually changes under our hands like a snake, by composition, by amount of the exact competencies needed to make that work happen. Now, let's get practical. Yeah, you obviously do need focus. So you keep your work in progress low to improve focus. All right, self-organization. If you actually change the teams to self-organize around the work that they already started to finish it faster, you actually help them. You employ the very essence of self-organization. So focus on the work in sprint and focus even more on the work you already started. Once again, goes with the work in progress limits. T-shaping. Obviously, the work keeps changing, and you'll need to step out of your comfort zone, and learn a new skill or two at a time. So again, you can support your team, maybe give it a little more time, maybe, say it's fine that it takes a little longer if you, learn testing skills or something that will help your team the next time to finish more work. And of course, you need courage to do all this, to step out of the comfort zone and learn new skills to finish new stuff. All right. You are smart people, so I'm going to put in one more concept. You might have seen this. Yes, that's a circle, and it has a comfort word in the middle. But is this more classic approach to motivation, which says that, and actually developing people. So comfort zone is the kind of thing you do all the time. So for a barista, it would be making coffee. The stretch zone is the stuff you don't really know how to do, but you can if you really try. So for example, learning a skill. Maybe you're not that familiar with some kind of framework. Maybe you're not yet doing code reviews for your colleagues, but you could. It's that kind of when two people stretch to actually, get the package across. Panic is the one that you're just, running around in circles with your hands up and screaming. Doesn't work at all. All right. So you should actually challenge your people to get into the stretch zone, make them comfortable, make them feel safe, make the environment suitable for them to actually challenge themselves and reach for stretch zone, because that is where they grow. All right. Call to action. Are you still doing individual performance reviews? Stop. Are you doing career plans for your employees? Maybe spending hours and hours and hours of your lives on career plans what they actually don't fulfill, or they actually leave once they do. Well, stop as well. Just use the work at hand to develop your people and stimulate continuous flow of intrinsic motivation. That is it. Thanks. 9 minutes, 43 seconds.
Thanks, Kuba. That was very eureka moment in the end. Let's see what Kamil has to say, and then we jump directly to the discussion.
Okay, thank you for having me here. I will share my screen. Hopefully you can see it. Can you see it?
Yay.
Perfect. So quick introduction, who am I? So I've been software engineer for a while, for some time. I've been smoothly jumping into the management, into the analyst, blah, blah, blah. And after some time, I became a Scrum Master. I had no idea that Scrum is, existing, or Agile is existing. Even when somewhere here we've been doing it, we had no idea that Scrum, or it's somewhere written. So I slowly became Agile coach, and now I'm like driving Agile transformations in like bigger scales, not only for like Czech speaking people, but also I've been driving it, for example, here in Tianjin, etc. So that's about me. 6 years ago, I've decided that I will be working just only in winter, when the weather is bad. So, and I've decided that every year I will change the company. So I've jumped into the company in August or in September, and then I leave the company in like April. And I had some time to think about things, and some time to travel, etc. I'm a passionate cyclist, so I've been like usually cycling from Prague to Italy or France or those places. It was quite fun, and usually you have a lot of time to think about things. When you are cycling 5 days in a row in the rain, then like the ideas starts coming, because your brain is completely fresh. What I like about cycling is that you have a lot of tools now which you can use in order to improve yourself, as a cyclist. I'm also competing, so it's super important for me. I have all the measurements possible, so I can, look at the numbers and I can improve based on the numbers. And this is something what I definitely like, even in what I'm actually doing. I'm extremely data-driven person. So when I'm looking on productivity in companies, I definitely agree with Karel that it's about the money at the end. It's about the ROI. It's about the outcome versus money. I'm also trying to somehow push companies into measure employee happiness, because sometimes I've experienced that, like a heavy push to the money, a push to return of investment has completely destroyed people. That people has been working for 16 hours every day, including weekends. Company was successful, but it wasn't good for people. The most important thing is that those companies were successful from like longer period. They just totally destroyed people. People left. And other people came in, and they've been destroying new people, and the companies are still successful. It's quite funny. I definitely agree with the structure. It's super important. As company is growing, you should be growing together with the company. It's super important to have like the right responsibilities, accountabilities. What's also important is how your offices are growing, how it looks like. For example, if there are some groups of people who should somehow cooperate closely together, they should sit closely together. Each floor is like a wall, it's like communication wall. It can completely destroy your like communication and transparency in your communication. When you have like wrong structure, it's super hard to delegate. When your company is growing, you should start delegating things. When you are delegating something to somebody and this person is failing, then the trust, is slowly becoming like to be destroyed, and when this person is failing like continuously, then the trust is completely gone, and with this you are slowly destroying your culture. And something what I've learned, in those companies, because I've been really in so many companies and so many organizations, is that the culture is super important thing. And I've been in one company, and this company has like 28 people, and there was super bad culture. There was so fear, people were hiding things between each other, lying to each other. It was super bad, even when it was like 28 people. And it was because there was one like CEO, and CEO was super directive, super like pain in the ass, he was like straight to the point. He wanted to see like results, like don't discuss with me, came with plan, and all those things, because he was overloaded. And the result was that people were scared. They were not telling the truth. So that's something I would like definitely like to point out here. And another thing with culture is this self-organization, as Jakub mentioned. If you want to have like self-organized teams. You shouldn't expect it from the beginning. It's important to build this self-organized team, right? It will take some time. Maybe you know this forming, storming, performing, norming, those stages of the groups. It's super important. It's hard to expect from random group of people that they will be self-organized, right? And you should expect that they will be failing. They will be definitely failing a lot. But you should also somehow measure, or you should focus on the price of the failure. You know, it's super important to know that your failure is not so expensive. You know? That's why I have here, I hope you can see it, price for feature story versus expected income. I really like when we can measure almost everything that's possible. You know, we are using the tools, those tools has a lot of numbers, we can measure it, we can show it, we can do the data analysis, you know, we can look back, and based on the history, we can focus, and we can somehow set up the goals for future. So for example, I think like price for feature, price for user story, price per sprint, it's super important. You should know what is the income from these things. It's also important, and Jakub, I'm not sure if we will be jumping to those topics, or I should go more deeper into first topic, and then there will be this topic.
We'll in the discussion, we will jump each of the topic, so you can go ahead.
Okay, so I will come to this one. So it's super important to have those numbers, you know, because we live in capitalism. At the end, it's all about the money. As I mentioned, you can definitely destroy people and hire new people, but you know, I think it's possible when you are on a regulated market. I think it's not possible when you are in open competition, you know, because then your competitors will be better than you, because you are losing knowledge with the people. And this is also another thing which I would like to mention, is that you should always think that you don't need to be the best, you know, on this planet. You know, you just need to be better than your competitors, and that's all about this. You know, sometimes companies are, you know, or people in companies, they are so heavily focused on like so super specific and small things, you know, and they are putting a lot of effort, a lot of time, and a lot of money to improve something which will improve the efficiency by 1%, you know, instead of, you know, making new features, for example, even when they are the best, you know, on the market. And it's waste, you know, you are wasting money. It's super important to understand what's actually going on, what you are measuring. Always validate everything with money. And once you have this goal to make money by the end of this year, and I'm sure that almost each company has this goal to have black numbers, then there's room for iteration, you know. And you should have also these goals on like team level. I found quite useful to have P&Ls, which is like, I guess you know what the P&L is. Is that right? Anybody who doesn't know what P&L is? So there should be people definitely responsible for return of investment, you know. And when you have product owners, for example, those product owners should be also responsible for return of investment, because when they are doing prioritization, you know, they should be thinking about the money. And this is like ultimate driver for the people and for their, you know, commitment. When product is successful, this person should be also successful. You know, it's like, imagine that I will be product owner and I will be super good product owner, you know. I will be somebody with a vision. I can create a strategy. I can execute things. Why I should be in another company when I can go create my own company, find the money from investors, you know, and do things without any, you know, bosses? Why should I be in some another company when I'm this person, this good person? So it's also important to motivate the people. And usually for like business people, because I believe that product owner should be more like business person with the mindset, it's super important to motivate this person also by money. When you are, you know, building some product which is making billions of dollars per year, it's a shame that you are getting like 100,000 Ks for your salary, right? This person will leave. So this is something definitely super important. And when you have a team which is actually also building this product, you should give them some shares or motivate them by also some bonuses or something like that. I know that there are many people which are saying that money are not like ultimate motivation, but at the end, it's fine when you can buy a Porsche or something which you've been dreaming for a while, when you are successful.
Kamil, can I stop you here? You are actually, we can actually start a discussion. We are still in the topic of the productivity, and I so far noticed that there are like two different approaches, or very moving one way or another. One is about the motivation that you Adam and Kubo tightly couple it with the motivation, or at least get to this topic. We have the view of Kamil, who mentioned that he's a very driven, like a data-driven guy, and you also put some way of, okay, this. You also touched the topic of the motivation, but also that you mentioned that you are a very data-driven guy, that you probably have some tied it to some more like metrics or data. And we have also Karel, who sort of like mentioned that this is not just the productivity is happening on the different level. It's not just on the team, but basically also in the structural level. And that's very important. And my question is right now for you, Kubo, and for you, Adam, if you also put yourself in the position when you use a data-driven approach to actually not just to use obviously motivation is important, but what about the data-driven approach? Have you ever thought about it? What are your thoughts about that?
You want to kick off the discussion by this? All right. So here are my thoughts. Sometimes, let's say that the delivery cycle is long for some reason. Let's say that you're working in some unspoken bank, which actually releases software only every 3 months. Then I would say that, for example, like if we picture a bank, and we can picture a product team that's developing digital mortgages, let's say, it can happen, all right? So until you can actually see the effects of the changes that you make on the clients, so the conversion rates, the actual money, the amount of mortgages, which is really like banks are run, they look at these numbers very closely. It takes a lot of time. So yes, you can be data-driven, but you have to, it has limits. If you're in a startup, it's completely different. You can develop and build and maybe even deploy changes like daily, and it's okay, But and you can actually measure life, but there are limits. You cannot apply. You can measure some data in every company. Yes, it can give you some insight. Yes, but in some environments, watching data too closely, especially if it's not really bound to the end customer satisfaction or to creating the value that you actually want to create, can just develop stress, which doesn't help the product or the client or you for that measure. So just hunting for data at every price, no.
Understand.
May I just add something to that?
Go ahead.
Yes, I was just not pointing into like measuring the data from a real application just to this, There should be value proposition after everything what you are actually doing, like product owners should be doing value proposition. There should be some design sprints, with validation on some prototype, for example, when it's possible. So it's like not just like income, which is real now, but also expected income, and each feature should have some planned income, Otherwise it shouldn't be done.
Agreed.
Adam?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for the question. It kind of opened the thing that I have written here that I wanted to open myself, because it sounded like me and Karel is coming in very different angle on the topic. And actually, if on the Karel's picture, the latest one, I would just add a few things on the right side. When he had a structure, I totally agree, because the structure allows you to follow the same goal as like if you have one product, you need to improve the product to sell it in order to have a successful organization from the business perspective, and it makes sense. But you need also a culture and that allows people to actually be part of improving the product, and you need some sort of like vision of where you are heading. And there I will slowly move to the reaction to the Kamil. I kind of agree that money is important for as a metric for like measuring how good you are as a product owner or how good you are in basically the business area. On other hand, there's really successful companies don't only count that. They have this like vision of what they are doing for the customer, and they sometimes even take a hit, like they take a flag for not doing the most like measurably financial thing, because they want to do something like important in the industry, and they simply have this like vision that drives them towards some long-term goals. And of course, like in the long term, you need to survive as a company and you need to thrive as a company. But sometimes you make a decision that is not only financially based.
Mm-hmm.
Agree.
You touched an interesting point that you mentioned that it can be very, you need to have an environment actually to use those metrics. Even probably Kubo touched it a little bit when he mentioned that they don't tell you everything, and sometimes they do, but my question is, what kind of culture does the company need to have where you actually use those metrics? That's also touching a little question from the audience, from Peppa, who asked like how to talk about the productivity and not to scare people. So probably very, 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 very similar questions. Who wants to go? All right.
So I can start.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you mentioned what kind of like tools and what kind of culture is needed.
What kind of culture do you need to actually to feel safe to actually use those kind of metrics, and what how to not scare people from the word productivity?
Well, it's super important for people to get all the context. You know, the worst thing what you can do is that you will decide something in the top management and then you will just send an email or something like that. It's super important that you are able to give some context. So when you are introducing something like new and it's huge, the best way from my point of view is some offsite or something like that. So you can, you know, share something with the people, you can introduce some things, and then you are going for a beers or something like that. And the people can approach you directly. They want to ask for something. And, you know, usually when people are drunk, and for example, I'm not drinking alcohol for some time, but when people are drunk, you know, they are like more open to, and there is like when you are in a pub, usually there are not like differences between like top management, you know, and the rest of the group, etc. After some time, after a couple of beers. So the discussion is like transparent, and I think that it's the best idea to do it here. And it's hard to have like culture which is like open, transparent, there's respect, you know, and all those things. It's super hard, you know. There are people which like they like the power, you know, and they're always showing that they are the bosses, and you know, the rest of the people are not so following them, you know. They're doing things just because somebody give them order. So, and it's hard when you are in like bigger company, like 1,000 or 60,000 people. It's almost impossible to have like good culture with the trust and respect. And it's important to hire good leaders. You know, like the person which is affecting the culture in the team is always leader. It's the person which has the biggest impact. So you should have really good understanding who you are looking for, how this person should look like, and how it should be, what the responsibilities should be, etc.
Thanks. What about the rest of the group? I'm thinking about the connection to the structure and how what Karel mentioned as the structure is important. Is there some structure that that is opening towards that kind of using the metrics, let's say, or measurements and measurements to measure? You mentioned that the outcome versus output and the money, how the affect the outcomes.
Maybe let me decouple these two questions. First, the metrics, I will come back to them, but I think metrics are considered more controversial in the Agile community than it deserves. Metrics are useful as long as you know what part of reality you see through the metrics and what part of reality you don't see or see distorted through the metrics that you chose to use. And the thing is what you do with the metric, that's another thing. So let me jump back to the culture. And there is a pretty strong body of research, mainly by John Seddon, a British researcher and consultant, that suggests that the structure, that the culture follows structure, that the organizational structure is a very strong determinant of people's behavior, and the organizational or company culture is the sum of people's behaviors and assumptions. So I've seen a few times like initiatives. So before we will undergo an Agile transformation, we need to change the structure, the culture. This is basically fools around. You don't change anything before you start actually changing the structure. Then the structure is how responsibilities and accountabilities are spread around the organization, and using metrics and putting targets on the metrics might be part of it, and then it of course influence how people behave.
And you mentioned that there is a first part of the question.
Yeah, I decoupled the metrics from the culture and then blend it back.
Nice.
Somehow.
Well done. What about you, Kubo? What's your opinion? You mentioned that in your talk that you even said like a stop money. You put the stop sign several times.
Yeah, but obviously the stop sign was so big that the text behind it wasn't readable anymore. Doesn't matter. All right. Anyway, I want to get back to Karel and challenge him. I actually read an article, and I will try to search for it, but which put these two phrases in a like one sentence, and it was exactly like culture follows structure, but structure follows culture. And I mean, what it meant is that the direction doesn't have to necessarily be that or the other way, that you have to start at some place and continue until the other one changes as well. They're complementary. So yes, they're bound, but perhaps the direction of your effort doesn't have to necessarily be one or the other, but one or the other. And I don't know, maybe there's something to it. Maybe not.
Well, the research suggests that it depends on the size of the organization. So if you are below 30 to 50, it's the other way around. The culture is mainly driven by the behavior of the strongest leader within the small group, and the structure kind of arises from it. Once you go way over 50, it's the other way around. Yeah.
So you're basically taking us back to your chart with small world and big world.
These seem to be interconnected.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm sorry. You would have to repeat the question, Kubat, to ring another bell in me.
Yeah. So I asked, you put the stop sign, and I wanted stop sign on the money, and that was mentioned like by Kamil as an ultimate motivator. And
no. That was on the whole industry of like individual people performance management, that kind of stuff. And once in a year, you actually meet with your manager to set up what you will improve in the next year, and how did you do with the bonuses which you get for the all this stuff that does not matter, it does not work, it's just being canceled globally basically, because like for example the bonuses, but this is just a solitary topic which we could talk about for hours.
Very, yeah.
Yeah, but you know, like for example, only the bonuses, if we only take those in account. So bonuses really are not a motivational factor, because you're actually already counting with them. You know, when you sign up for the job and they tell you there's 20% bonus, you already count with getting all that bonus. And if you don't get it, it doesn't motivate you to improve. It actually demotivates you, because you already counted with the bonus. So, you know, it just, and all this, basically the message should have been just let people be motivated by their work, to get new skills, to do more work. That's it. Like,
I have a very interesting story to the external motivation and these kind of bonuses.
All right.
Which actually surprised me when it happened, when I was experiencing it. So I was working with a team in the financial sector. It was 25 people. So it was actually 4 Scrum teams, but with a single product owner. And what they were working on was basically the top priority for the whole company. So it was very, it was in the spotlight. Yeah, the sprint review every Thursday, 9:30 was attended by half of the board and 60 people to see how things are going. And the team had a lot of struggles and a lot of obstacles. I could, if we were drinking beer, I could go this story for 2 hours. It would be very, very, very strong and very funny. However, there was some event that bonded the people very strongly. I will not go into details, but they got really very strongly bonded. And they got some kind of a soft deadline by the end of September. And basically, the only thing that would happen if they delivered any later would be that the product would generate less revenue. That's it. Yeah. Of course, it would be 1 year later. That would be a big problem. And at some point, the CEO of the company came to the team and told each of them that if you deliver by the end of August or the beginning of the September, you will get a bonus as high as, I don't know, 2.5 of your salary. And then every week, the bonus will get lower and lower. And if you deliver after the end of October, the bonus would equal to 0. And he never consulted with me. I was a Scrum Master, so why would he? And I said, oh, so we have this kind of extrinsic motivation, and everybody was kind of aiming by the end of the September. And now there was a very strong, like, I don't know, 1.5 salary, and these were smart people, so appropriate salaries. That would be a very strong motivator for delivering sooner. And the project wasn't doing really well. Yeah, we had to prune the backlog every now and then to make it. So I said that would make for a fun August. And then what happened? Everybody aimed by the end of September. Nobody ever mentioned, if we cut a corner here a bit or maybe a bit there, we can have a bigger bonus by having delivered sooner. No one ever mentioned that. It was like they forgot about it. I don't know. I never asked anyone to remind them, but it was never mentioned, and they delivered by the end of September. I got the bonus that was like in the middle of this slope. That was very, very interesting. And then we talked about it much later, and what seemed for the people to be much more important than the bonus was to deliver a top product. And they were even given a target. It needs to be 3rd best on the market measured by NPS. And I said, why 3rd? Well, what kind of shitty goal is it? It will be the best, of course. Yeah? And they were. They delivered the best measured by the NPS with the actual users. Yeah. So that's a very, very interesting story to see.
That's an interesting story. I want to touch it. So do you believe that it was because of the money, or because that they have the same understanding what happens if they don't deliver? So everybody get bonus drop.
I think what were more important, at least for majority of them, and this is my assumption, it is delivering the best product and basically saving the company, because they were pitching up on the market. If they didn't do it, 2 years later, they would be irrelevant on the market. So the importance of their mission was stronger for them than the extra salary on the bonus if they cut corners and delivered something at the beginning of September. That was my assumption.
Actually, if I may follow this and like return to the metrics, the right metric, and it will be awesome if we have a companies like that, will be to make this NPS metric. Like if you want to win the market, you need this and not to deliver on some precise deadline. You need to deliver the right thing. So if the company will focus on the NPS, it will make everyone happy and more engaged, while this like deadline that was kind of hard to approach kind of demotivated the people. So this is probably a very good example.
And this team was not only responsible for building it, but actually rolling it out to the brokers. So they were in touch with the brokers and the broker companies. They had a bunch of them. They were as a team, as a Scrum team, not some guys over there behind the wall, but as a Scrum team, they were responsible for prioritizing which brokers will come first and maintaining relationship with them. And so it brought them much closer to the actual users.
Would you say that they were productive?
They delivered the outcome. The outcome was there. Yeah. And then we had two very strong metrics, which we updated like every morning. It was hanging in the atrium for the whole company to see. That is the number of contracts being closed through this, and number of users, which would be the brokers, and it was rising, and we were seeing these numbers also on sprint reviews in a history graph. Yeah.
All right. Karel, you touched an interesting point. You actually put the productivity a little bit on the, not from the team perspective, but also to the perspective of probably something bigger, like organization. You mentioned a structure, but I assume that it's sort of like a company. That was a touching story about the team that actually wasn't working on the most important part. So how to look?
Most of them didn't.
Yeah, most of them didn't, apparently. So how to look for, if you are in company, how to look for productive of the company, like not just the team, but for the company? What can you do to actually look into the productivity of your company?
Well, I'm not expert in many areas besides product development, so I can speak only in the product development area. And the main thing is that you organize the organization around products, not around components, not around applications, not around anything divisible, but the whole product. And then what I typically do is ask, what is your product, and create so-called the product definition. And the companies typically see after this exercise that they have much lower number of products that they originally thought, and that those products are much broader and bigger than they originally thought. And suddenly you have 100 people working on the product. So it's not really a Scrum team, but you still have a single product owner and single product backlog. And this is when the intuition of many people goes like, how can one product owner write user stories for 100 people? He doesn't. He directs the overall product and is responsible, as Kamil said, for the return of investment of the product, not for writing user stories and putting them into Jira. And this changes the whole dynamics. And then you have 100 people sharing the responsibility for the product end to end. And this is when any common sense completely ends, and you need to go to research to see how these kind of large groups can cooperate on a larger scale. But the more complex structure you add, the more you start dividing the responsibilities across different groups, the more us versus them, and the longer the feedback loops and the longer the communication paths, the information starts distorting, and you may have an individual productivity on a team level, which wouldn't matter in the end on the product level scale.
That's a nice touch, actually. You have a lot of nodding, and I think you have sort of a lot of nodding from the audience, which are saying exactly true based product planning. We have Tomáš Kejzlik saying that, we have Basil saying that. So you seems to touch the point about the product of the organization. Maybe Kamil, you just started, but Adam, you've been already in Socialbakers for some time. So how do you actually look at that, as Karel mentioned, in your organization?
Yeah, it's like from Tomáš, for what Tomáš wrote in the chat. It's like exactly this. The value stream mapping is one of the great tools to understand what brings the value to your company. And if you turn what Karel is saying about the product-oriented company, it's like you have to align your company around the value you are providing. it doesn't matter what the value is. But at least in the creative areas of the work, you need to understand the value you are creating to be successful in getting it to the market. And what is important is that the structure, as we call it here, is kind of like organizational design. And it's a design. It's like the word is here for the purpose. You need to research it. You need to like figure it out. It's not that you can take organizational design of the Spotify and copy it over to the Socialbakers and it will work. We tried. Yeah, it doesn't work. We are a little different company than the Spotify, and yeah, we all are like making mistakes here. What is important is this design part. Like we need to learn from the mistakes we are making, and if it doesn't work, we need to change it. So I see this as a very dynamic thing that needs to settle somehow around the value we are providing to the market.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering how many companies other than you and Kiwi copy the Spotify model at some point.
There's a great quote on that. Don't copy the Spotify model, copy the Spotify approach, or the attitude, because that's the valuable part.
Yeah, we also
don't copy their business model because they still don't want to make money actually, other than raising the premium subscription.
I have a question for Karel, and I saw this many places. It's basically about the misinterpretation of the LESS framework. And I mean, how do you prevent a company management to, once they see the 100 people in the team, let's say, that has still, yes, one product, to hire also 10 more product owners, which will be subordinate to the one product owner, because a lot of time that will just, bring in noise. But what do you do? And do you see that as a problem?
If I can rephrase, how do I prevent them to hire 10 product owners and implement a product?
To verticalize the product. Yeah.
Yes,
or
yes,
maybe that's fine for you.
What do you mean? Preventing them to, it's fun. Yeah. It is fun. What I do with them is to guide them through a system modeling exercise to see what would be the dynamics of having a team level product owner and what would be a dynamics of a product owner per product and having a single backlog. It typically starts with the number of backlog or number of lists exercise and how it does influence and adaptiveness. And adaptiveness is typically a thing that companies look for, even though they don't know. Yeah, this is the first thing that you need to establish. They look for time to market and speed and everything. But if you start engaging with them, what is important, you end up with they want to be able to react cheaply and quickly to changes. Yeah. And we are now being hosted by a company who is now making a business in an era which is changing very unpredictably and very violently. So you're looking for adaptiveness. Once you start looking for adaptiveness, the number of backlogs per product very strongly influences your adaptiveness. Yeah. The Spotify model, for example, does not optimize for adaptiveness. It does optimize for a knowledge sharing and a team autonomy. And if you used the Spotify applications 5 years ago, you could see it was a Frankenstein monster and it behaved very differently on every platform because each product owner was looking on their little feature. And I was talking to one of the project managers on a conference, and we were having a long discussion over lunch in the LESS versus Spotify. And I was very interested on what kind of a dynamics does he see in the company. He was there like for 4 years or something, so he's seen a lot. And at the end, he told me, I think we could do better as a company if we actually implemented LESS. But having your own team as a product manager is more comfortable and easier. Yes, it is.
I love that, Karel.
It is.
All right. I think it's a little bit time to jump also to the questions of the audience. We have a few on Slidos. I was starting from the top. They don't really have upvotes, but I will start from what I see on the top. So the first one over here, we have probably the question more for Adam and Jakub, and I would be interested also in Kamil's point of view, is that how do you motivate remote teams?
Sure. What are remote teams like? Now we are all remote teams.
Yeah,
it sucks.
Amen, brother.
We were always kind of remote teams. Like we started as a company in Pilsen, then we had some like branch in Prague, and spread to the rest of the world. And it was always a challenge. And today, I would say that we are like more prepared for this challenge because we always like struggled with this problem. And I mean, it's important to what basically Kuba said is that people need to be motivated by the work itself. They need to understand what they are doing, and to some degree, of course, if we are building the huge application as we are, they will be not like on every startup like, hooray, we built this cool thing. It's social media analytics tool, so they will be probably not as ecstatic as in NASA. The people were launching this helicopter on the Mars. I can imagine people being more engaged in the work, but they need to understand the reason why they are doing it, because this is the core of their motivation. They are going to spend most of their day writing the code that do something, and they need to understand the something, the reason why they are doing the thing, what problem they are solving. So that's important part. Other than that, I have like no great answer to that. It's the thing that I would say that every company is struggling with. We were just like a little bit prepared because we like never forced people to go to the office.
All right, thanks. What about you, Kamil? You started as an Avast. I'm pretty sure you started remotely. You are at home. What's your point of view on that motivation of remote teams?
Well, I'm used to work remotely like for a couple of years actually, because usually we had like teams in Singapore or India or Indonesia or China. So it's super important to have like super easy to understand and motivational vision, you know, and it's important to have somebody who is able to bring this vision to the people just by selling this vision to the team. And this person should be product owner, ideally. So when you have good product owner, and this product owner is able to sell the vision, and vision is really good, then it doesn't matter if you have people working remote or not. Also, as I mentioned, some financial benefits are also good. You know, like people should know when they are doing good job, they should have like good salary. You know, and that means that if you are working for Google, you should have better salary than when you are working for some company which is super small, making so much money, right? So yeah, I think those things.
And what about you, Kuba? You mentioned motivation.
Yeah, I want to get into this one, don't I? All right, so first of all, I don't think that there is any reasonable difference as far as the leadership is able to communicate, you know, fluently in the digital world, let's say. So as you said, Kamil, like if the vision is clear and it is still given the same way, the same people, nothing really changes. As far as I talked about the intrinsic motivation, again, when the purpose of each user story as the little package of value for the end user is actually clear, that's fine. Now, a lot of our user stories, you know, guys, to be honest, like, is it always so? Is it always like that we really see the value for the customer in the story? I'm not that sure. So you know, it has limits. But I'm asking a different question, actually. A lot of people are way more, not productive, but let's say that you spent an hour on commute going to your work before, and then an hour on your commute going back from work. A lot of people these days are actually working harder than they were before. They are working more hours on the home office. So I'm actually asking, like, do you make your people stop? Because they are more likely to burn out on home office than they were going into the offices. So it isn't like, how do you motivate your remote teams? But it is, do you stop your people time from time to actually relax, have a coffee without a topic, or drink, or whatever, play an 80s video game like Stunts, and have fun time, not work? How do you make them stop? Because my experience is that that IT people actually are more effective once the work at hand is clean. Now, if it's conceptual work, it might be a little tricky, because a lot of small talk around kitchen might have cleared up a lot of issues, smaller issues that there are. But the actual hard labor, I think that there's higher effectivity.
Yeah, understand. Thanks. We go to the next question, which is, what are the limits of doing Agile without any Scrum managers? This is actually, I want to give the word to Karel. He mentioned similar things on our sync before, like 2 weeks ago. You had some view on that, right? Can you maybe give an answer over that?
So I will only assume what's behind this question, because it kind of muddled for me. So there is a notion that there are no managers in Scrum. Yes, there is no mention about managers in Scrum, because the focus of Scrum is a product development, and it only talks about the work being done on the product. However, there are many other responsibilities that are being associated with managers, and Scrum never says anything about them. And then the question is, so which of them belongs to the Scrum team or the individual roles, and which of them stay there? Yeah? So first, the Scrum team needs to come from somewhere. Someone needs to say, this is a team, and hire the people. And without the manager, I don't know how this is going to happen. Yeah? Someone needs to buy them chairs and computers and give them ID cards to go to the offices. And it probably doesn't need to be a Scrum Master or an individual developer. Yeah? However, many of the traditional responsibilities of a manager, like organizing people's work, goes to the team, and some other as well. Some are given to Scrum Master, like coaching the people and maybe helping them with the personal and professional development, even though they might not be the experts in the area. There is always something left. And what I've seen, either at my clients or in the case studies abroad, that this kind of a manager who no longer does one-to-ones, who no longer does the yearly appraisals and gives orders to people, but just makes sure that the environment is there, and then hires the people and holds their contracts and such, can be a manager of something between 50 and 150 people. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this varies widely across the case studies and the context.
All right. Is there another point someone has?
I do. I'm getting this question too quite often. And any Scrum managers, I will focus on the Scrum Masters as a role or a job. It depends on the company. And the limit of doing Agile without the people like that is that you limit the progress. You keep the team, and yeah, it was Karel who mentioned that on our sync that we had before, that you leave the boat on the same place and there is no wind pushing it forward. And this wind pushing the boat forward is the Scrum Master. It's the job of the Scrum Master to improve the business of the company by improving the teams, how they work and how they collaborate with the other teams. So for me, this is not like, yes, you can leave it on the team if they are mature enough, but I believe it's way better if you have this person that is responsible for improving And by improving, I don't mean any like soft skill bullshit. I mean the business.
Karel mentioned a little bit, I believe he meant manager, as a manager that we see. My question is for you, Adam. A follow-up question is that if you believe that this Scrum Master can be a manager or is a manager, or how what's the connection between those two?
Oh, we are following the nexus in this. We do have this thing combined. We have like role is, or job description is Agile team manager, and one of his roles is the Scrum Master. So if you want to know the details of how we are doing it, it's almost completely written in the nexus, but we kind of figure it out ourselves.
I don't recall an Agile team leader role in the nexus.
Oh, there is not, but they call them Scrum Masters, but the Scrum Masters is doing the managerial job. They don't have any other manager for the team.
I think Nexus is silent about it. Yeah, the Nexus Scrum Master is a Scrum Master. There is no distinction. I happen to be licensed Nexus trainer.
Ooh.
Guys, I don't know if what's the level of maturity of our audience, but aren't we getting a little too deep? Like, I don't want to be rude or anything, but
can you maybe explain a little bit what Nexus is? Just like a brief TLDR for the audience.
Karel, you are the certified.
So Nexus is good. It's the same as less. It is built on the same ideas, on the same fundamentals. But if you learn less, Nexus doesn't bring anything new to the table. Absolutely, honestly. Saying this as a licensed Nexus trainer.
Thank you. All right, moving to the next question. So this is from Pavel. Totally agree, Karel. I have the same observation. I have a question for Jakub, Janak. Topic: where is the borderline between transparency and autonomy, privacy in the team's management relationship? Thank you.
Okay, so first one, I think that transparency is actually enabler for autonomy. All right. So first you have to be very open about what you're doing, how you're doing it, what's your progress, what you need to finish it, if you need help and stuff like that. And then, of course, you can have higher autonomy. But these things are so deeply rooted, at least, according to me, that's just my opinion, but this is so hardly rooted inside of all Agile frameworks that I cannot see autonomy working without transparency. And even picture the triangle of empiricism, right? Transparency, inspection, adaptation, like all that is broken if you don't have transparency. So I think you have to be transparent. It has to do with respect. You have to have respect, be transparent, then you can be autonomous. Autonomy is not anarchy. It's a different thing. Autonomy is choosing your way how to fill the goal that's ahead of you, that you already know. At least how I see it.
So there is no love triangle without three lovers.
Yeah, and I mean privacy, I don't know if you can be private about many things, but you should actually be very public about your job. If you keep your work only to yourself, it's most likely that you're actually missing valuable help or advices or input from your colleague. Maybe he's got a one-line solution to a thing you've been bothering yourself for 2 days with. I don't think that privacy really should be there, but maybe I'm misreading the question.
Okay, thank you. Any other points to the question? All right, let's move to the next one, which is from Kubeš. How will IT look like after 1 year of life at home? Who wants to take this one? All right. I'm interested into Karel's opinion right now? Where do you see IT being in 1 year from now? Is there even going to change?
I wish I knew. I'm the one who thinks that the remote work for all these benefits is harming companies and productivity in the long term. And the remote work is like remote sex. It is certainly possible. Some people have no other option, but it's not like the real thing. If you're talking about collaboration, we are finding way how to do it. It will never be better than collaboration like in the same room. And now we're talking about the teams having a shared goal. I think that for many areas where people are really working individually and achieving the goals individually, maybe working from home might be better. But on the team level, and again, from the perspective of a product development, I think the overall productivity will go down long term. And one of the things is what is missing are all these informal interactions that are happening in the office and in the online settings are severely limited. And there is a research from, I don't know, 10 years ago or something in Siemens. And they did this very interesting thing. By then, they had the coffee machines per team. So the marketing team had their own coffee machine and a sales team and the product management teams and developers and Java programmers and such. And they were meeting at the coffee machines and having the conversation at the coffee machine. With the same team, they are sitting the whole day at the same table. And then they removed all of them. And they had like one coffee machine per 6 people. They removed all of them and brought just 3 coffee machines for the whole, put them in the hallway. And it was like 1 coffee machine per 120 people suddenly. So the ratio was like a 60-fold. And suddenly people from different departments starting to bump each other at the coffee machine in the kitchen on the hallways. They start having a conversation they would never have before. A lot of ideas came out of it, and the revenue it was increased 20% just by the salespeople having or giving an idea to product people, and vice versa. It would never happen. And this is called an interactivity. And in the organizational design, it is a parameter that helps to spread ideas and think. And we are missing this. We are missing this because now you only talk to someone at a scheduled call with an agenda. And there is a very few occasions where you just talk to someone randomly who you happen to know by the face and having a conversation that might spark some interesting things. So we are missing this, and a year from now probably we'll be seeing the effects of the decreased interactivity.
Thanks. Kubo?
And that was my point. Like you can still have this, but you have to be you have to put work in actually to make this happen. You can make I don't know, speed dating events across your company. You can make many different strange activities that will actually make well, kind of force, but enable your people to meet across the company and have this, like, you know, strange but functioning kind of communication and spontaneous creation moments. But you have to put the effort in. It just doesn't happen on itself on home office. There are ways to do this. You just have to make it happen.
Kubo, I will be very interested in some like guidance here. I actually missed this water fountain factor very much in the company. I even like created the event for the whole engineering called Virtual Coffee, and it really doesn't work. I'm like, we are telling people the news like what we know, and they don't. But it's not working in a way it was around the coffee machines. And we really miss that. Like, if anyone have idea how to do that, please tell me.
I don't know if this actually like applies to the topic that we're doing, but I'll be super happy to have, you know, a chat with you sideways.
We can take it to the topic to the next one if you want to, guys, because I would be also interested. I tried several things. Some of them works, but majority not. And even those that work, they didn't produce the same result as having the water fountain.
I'll give you a hint. Start with pairs. If you're, you know, mostly we started with groups, but that's too large. You have to start with pairs because it's easier to actually open and have a chat with only one other person. And then you can build it up, you know, when people are actually getting used to this kind of new experience, meeting new people across the companies. But No, that's just a spoiler.
Yeah. I mean, we have to adapt in the end.
If I may add something to this topic.
Go ahead.
Well, it's important to understand why we as a society or as a humanity, we are, building those relationships between each other. There are like species which are not making relationships between each other. And it's because like we are powered by hormones, in our brains, in our bodies. And one of these hormones is oxytocin, and another is, for example, serotonin. And we need to be like close each other. We have to have this close contact between each other in order to produce those hormones into our bodies. And when they are not produced, our relationships are broken. So I definitely agree that it will be going down because now we are missing those hormones. We are, finding those hormones in our families because we are spending time with them at home, so we have strong relationship with our families, but not with our coworkers. And it's not good for productivity from longer term.
Like, I'm sorry to do this constantly, but if I remember correctly, oxytocin is released when you hear a compelling story, like about something that's happened to somebody. So, again, I'm challenging it. Like this situation, this COVID terror is something that happened to all of us, and with all such situation, and I slept on the book and can say, so completely outside, but the thing remains, like the good companies will actually improve by this. The medium companies might actually like survive, and bad might actually get to be bankrupt or something. I don't know, but this applies to what we're doing as well. I mean, I think we should still, I'm gonna say it, milk it. Basically like use this momentum that there still is and get the most value out of the situation, learning habits that we can utilize when working remotely for ages to come. Yeah, I know. Blah blah blah.
There is just one. Sorry for interruption, but
that seems to be a discussion. Go ahead.
The thing is that the biggest like dose of oxytocin are produced when we are close to each other. For example, when we are doing handshake, all these things like when you hear some story, it's also good, but it's not so huge impact on this. So that's the thing.
Can we answer Andrei Franek's question? I think it deserves answering.
I want to move over. Okay, let's go on. I will read it very quickly, and you can go ahead. I have a feeling that calling the role Scrum Master is not helping the management to understand the true mission. I'm still meeting managers that believe that I'm the master of the team, the one who decides. Do you think that using the different name might help?
No.
Karel took the word. Go ahead.
No, the name is spoiled, definitely, and it probably wasn't smart at the start. I read some article, it came up, and when Jeff Sutherland and his team were discussing Scrum and just basically designing it 30 years ago, they said we need someone who would actually explain this to people, and who would the team, and the role of the Scrum Master back then was very different. And someone said, so how do we call it? How about Scrum Master? Okay, good. Write it down. And that was it. Yeah, there was not really a deep thought about it. But nowadays, the name Scrum Master is being spoiled because these are these low-level guys down there in the basement, putting stickies on the board and chasing the chickens every morning on the daily Scrum or the daily stand-up, and it is being poorly understood. But partially, it is being poorly understood because this is what the managers typically see. And one thing that I'm struggling with, Scrum Master is not a junior role. It's not a role that can be done by someone who was a tester for 2 years and then decided to coach people. I believe that the Scrum Master, how it is defined in the Scrum Guide, how it is meant, and the evolution of Scrum Master was very, very, very wild. So 20 years ago to something very different. But nowadays, Scrum Master is accountable for the team's effectiveness. And it was very long the case. Now it's explicitly written in the first sentence in the Scrum Guide and the role. So it seems like it's the team's manager. Yes and no, it is a managerial role. And it's a senior role. You better have done something in software development for 10 years before you become a Scrum Master and be effective. And then how you talk to the managers, you combine the theory with the research, with the practice. And this worked for me, how to best explain things. Yeah, the theory itself is worthless. The experience itself is worthless, and there is a blend about it. And there is research behind Scrum, past 25. So I think renaming the role wouldn't help. It's just another name that would get spoiled. But doing it right helps, and it takes years. So
Andre, sorry. Thank you. Cool. Let's move to the next one. What are some good facilitation resources depending on use case? I'm not really sure I understand the question. All right. We're going to move to the next one. And if the anonymous person can ask again, we're going to help to give you the answer. All right. The next one is, if I'm the owner of the company and we are not performing well, how can I recognize the right person who can help me? This person is anonymous for probably some good reasons.
Just go for Karel. Go for Karel.
No, Jakub, go ahead.
No, really, go for Karel. Like, I mean, that's the answer to the question. And like,
all right,
move on.
Karel seems to have a traction. Karel, go ahead.
I don't know.
Me neither.
How to recognize how to recognize someone who will not sell you a snake oil? I don't know.
Just call Karel.
Yeah. Well, it could be the most visible troublemaker, but it could not.
Well, the problem with troublemakers is that they are not good in communication, and I think the best way is to set up some super crazy goal, maybe some financial goal, and you will see it will be crazy enough to take this opportunity and help you with this.
So what about you guys? You've been working either as a Scrum Master, either as helping at the team, as a managers. Who did you randomly choose the person to become the Scrum Master? Did you actually use some sort of a gut feeling to actually select the people who are fit to the role?
It really depends. There is no guidance here. We were hiring Scrum Masters for quite some time, and I would say that it wasn't really successful endeavor, because I say that 90% of the people that came for the interview weren't fit for the job. And it was, as Karel unfortunately described, these types of the people. And sometimes you have someone who's good developer and he's thinking about moving himself to the different area and he can do the job actually. It's very tricky to say in some generalization how to find a good Scrum Master. You will see it in the people if you see them, I would say.
All right, thanks. Okay, let's move the last one, and it's almost the 9 p.m. So we're gonna take this as the last one, and then we do a last round of the good advices for your life and agile and productivity. But before that, let's jump to the last one, which is the previous one that we asked to be specified, and it's what are good facilitation resources to make your team more effective?
I put there a link to a book that I learned from. It might not be the best book, but it is good enough. It provides a lot of very good advice. But there might be others books that are equally good. So if it helps, have a look at this one.
Okay, we'll put it into probably some notes after, and this will end, so it's available for everyone. All right, I think that's it for today. Guys, you have you can have the closing word for today's discussion. How did you like it, and what would be the last like TLDR for productivity and agile? Can start from Kubo.
Sorry, I'm gonna pass. I just loved being here. Thanks a lot for inviting me, and I'm just really tired. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Kubo. What about Adam?
Kind of feel a similar way. I appreciate the discussion. I expected that it will be more heated, actually. That I know that we are taking things from slightly different angles. So I expected that we will be putting fire on our slides a little bit more. And yeah, I mean, I learned something today, so it's very good to be part of this, and I hope that the community can get something from this. And thank you all for participating and coming this late.
Kamil?
Well, thanks for having me. It was interesting for me because I'm more like in top management of like bigger companies. So it was interesting to see like the Scrum Masters and what the problems which I am actually solving on daily basis, like speaking with completely different people with completely different interests. Like top management is usually interested about money, and yeah, it was quite fun. And actually, sorry for having just one slide. I had like relatively good presentation, but my computer gets stuck. I would like to share one thing, sorry for this, but one thing which is important, but computer gets stuck. So hopefully you can see this. Do you see my Excel sheet?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
So I think it's super important to map your activities, what is actually going on in your team. You know, usually people are not spending all the time working, you know, usually people are not spending all the time on new features. So it's super important to understand what's actually going on inside your team. And then you can set up the targets to reduce meetings, reduce bugs, you know, find something for, I don't know, static analysis of your code, etc. And that's all I think it was important from my presentation.
Cool.
Oh, don't do that. Yeah. Well, the code reviewing is the best learning opportunity. You don't want to automate this. Sorry for jumping.
And we have the last Karel from the panel discussion.
Right when it's finally becoming heated.
Yeah, exactly.
And we
have a top of
end
the
it.
hour.
Yeah. I don't have any closing wisdom. Thank you for inviting me. I enjoyed being in this wonderful guys, and I think it was reasonably heated. Yeah.
Come on, we can heat it next time.
But we can do better. Yes, I know.
It was the first discussion, and I thank you all for joining today. Actually, it took 2 hours. I didn't even notice, and we still have we had 32 attendees still 10 minutes ago. So I think it's pretty good, and I hope that definitely or hopefully helped those people who also attended, not just us being on the call and talking. This was recorded and it will be published on YouTube. So just watch our Kiwi blog post, and we're gonna put that thanks to the community team. I also have a really nice discussion with you guys. I mean, I tried to be moderator. I'm not really sure how good job or bad job I did, but you had enough space to actually express yourself. And I'll be looking if we can do something next time as well. We'll see how it goes. So thank you very much.
You did an excellent job, Kubo.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Kubo.
I'm gonna finish my beer.
Thank you, Kubo.
I thank also Jona, Radim, and Honza, who actually was organizing this and was helping putting us together, and did a pretty good job in the background. And yeah, hopefully see you next time. Have a good evening, everyone.